Hi, Jocelyn with Wolters World, and I wanted to answer a few of your questions today about laundry and travel. We find that it's really important to be able to do laundry as you're traveling because it allows you to pack a lot less. So a lot of people don't really get quite how we do that, and so there are a few ways to go about it. We often hand wash things in the sink, and I'll go through that with you in a little bit. We also send things out sometimes. We find a laundry wherever we are, and we take our stuff there and have it washed, which is the cheaper of the options as far as having someone else do your laundry. The more expensive option, which we do on occasion have to do, is to have it done by the hotel you're staying in. So those are our three big options, and I will go ahead and explain some of those in a little more depth. So one of the most expensive but easiest ways to get your laundry done while you're traveling is to send it out with the hotel. And typically you'll find in your room a bag, and it's, yay big plastic bag, and it typically has some sort of paper where it lists all the prices, and you write down what you want done to your clothing. If you want it pressed or just folded, the charges may differ, and trust me, the cost differs greatly depending on the type of hotel you're in, the quality and the price of the hotel. Usually the higher it is, the higher your laundry cost is going to be. But you go through this little checklist, you write in how many things you have of each type, and you send it all out, you leave it by the door, or you leave it at the front desk, and it will be delivered to you usually the next morning, sometimes a little bit longer than, 12 to 24 hours, somewhere in there. And as you can see, we had to do that this week because we were running really short on time and really short on clothes that didn't smell. So we sent everything out, and shirts and pants and whatnot, and it all came back nicely folded. I promise you, I do not fold clothes this nice at home, so it's really kind of a luxury. It's also just a luxury that I didn't have to wash it, dry it, and fold it myself. So anyway, that's one of the great ways to get your laundry done while you're traveling. So all that said, we find that it depends on where you are in the world, what kind of laundry you typically use. In Europe, typically there are laundromats where you can take your clothes and wash them there yourself. We just stop by any old store, a grocery store or whatnot, buy a small thing of detergent and wash and dry our clothes right there. In the U.S., often hotels will have coin-operated, or sometimes you can use a credit card and wash your clothes at the hotel. Which is wonderful because then you again get to wash your own clothes, and it's a lot less expensive than having them do it for you. In South America, there are lavanderias where you drop off your clothing and they wash and dry it and fold it, and as I said, sometimes they'll iron it for you for an extra charge typically. But you drop it off, and then you go back and pick it up, and oftentimes it's all nice in a Ziploc sort of bag or something so that all of your stuff is separate from everything else. In the US, we also have laundromats where you can go and wash your own clothing. Those typically tend to be huge, like industrial size or commercial size washers and dryers. So you could get a lot done at one time. And for those of you living outside the US, the dryers in the United States are hot, and they got a lot of air. You may think that you have a dryer in Italy or in Finland or wherever, but I promise you, I've never met a dryer as hot as the ones in the US. So be aware of that. It may shrink clothing that is cotton, jeans, things like that. Often European or, any clothes from outside the US are not made to withstand that kind of heat. So be aware of that if you do wash and dry clothing in the US. So all the stuff about laundromats, lavanderias, and hotel washings is great and wonderful, but the one thing that you can almost always do yourself is wash it in the hotel sink. And I'm going to teach you how to do that because a lot of people don't know this, and it's a great travel skill to have. So the least expensive, and also the option that's almost always open to you, is to wash your clothes in the sink or in the tub if you've got a ton, in your hotel or hostel or wherever you're staying. To do that, you need a couple of things. You need a plug. This hotel actually happens to have one, but often I find that they don't have plugs. And in that case, you can buy these little silicone mats that just sort of stop the water. And I will put a link on our site so that you guys can find those fairly easily, because they're not always super easy, because I don't even know the name of them. But anyway, it's like this silicone stopper and it works really wonderfully. It's flat, it's thin, it's easy to pack. So what we're gonna do is stop up the sink. The other thing you need is detergent. I tend to like dry detergent because, you know, you have to check all those liquids through with TSA and everything else. So when you're using dry detergent, the water needs to be a little bit warmer to dissolve it. I also like to wash in the warmest water that my clothing can handle. So pay attention to that and you know, what the tag says on your clothing. I personally use Norwex for my stuff because a very small amount goes a really long way. It has enzymes and stuff, and it's really natural. And it also has no smell. So when we're traveling, I like to add a little smell to our clothing simply because we may wear it 2 or 3 times before washing or more. Anyway, so this, I just added to this a little bit of lemon oil just to add a little bit of fresh smell to it. So I'm just gonna add a little warm water, a little cool water, and for a sink full, about that much is all I need from Norwex. It's a really small amount. It does not foam up as much as many other things. So like those bubbles go away pretty quickly, and just plug that back up and throw your stuff in there. I typically like to travel in clothes that are thin and light and just wear a whole bunch of layers. The great thing about that is that also means that all those things dry more easily. And I've got a trick for drying clothes quickly. So anyway, you throw your stuff in. I typically let this sort of soak for, you know, 5 or 10 minutes just to get, I don't know, I just feel like it starts cutting the cooties and the dirt out of your clothes. And then gently, but vigorously, I guess, start rubbing bits and pieces together. If you have stains or things like that, part of why I love the Norwex stuff is that it has the enzymes in it, and it tends to get those things pretty quickly, although you may need to let it soak longer. And you know what? I got a little bit of grease on the shirt the other day. Usually it's Mark and the kids that have stains, not me. But I got a little bit on this shirt, so I'm just gonna pay a little attention to where that was and scrub that a little bit more. So there we go. Okay, so after you've washed, you just gotta wring it all out pretty well, and then you have to rinse it. And I use another sink full of clear water to do that. So I'll show you how to do that now. But I have to wash all these other things. Okay, so I have washed my clothes. I'm going to rinse the sink out a little bit and then stop it back up also. You can get the thing in there. So as it's filling, just to use the water twice, I sort of rinse things lightly, and I'm just gonna sort of let this stuff soak, and I'll squeeze it out a few times as it sits in here. And I typically rinse in cold water. I don't know why, it's just what I always do. You know, the warmer the water, the more things bleed, so you kind of have to watch that. So that's it, and then of course we just sort of squeeze it out by hand, and then we'll hang to dry, but I have a trick for the drying, so I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, so here's my trick for drying my clothes. Mark is a huge help with this. He also does the laundry on occasion too, so don't fuss at me about that. But this is where he kind of comes in. It actually helps a lot to have an extra set of hands Sometimes the kids aid in this and sometimes they don't. But I take one towel, lay it flat, throw the things on that need to be dried after I've already sort of squeezed them out, and then I throw another towel on. And then I roll the towels up together. Hey Mark, come over here. Okay, so rolling. Husband, grab the other end. Show him how it's done. We take this and we twist in opposite directions. Twist and twist and twist until you can't twist anymore. And then usually we unwind and we twist the other way. This doesn't always work for some things, like if you've got particularly big weave sweaters or things like that. You know, a giant amount of twisting isn't very good for some fabrics. But what I've got in here are two cotton poly shirts, and they handle it pretty well. So anyway, just unroll, unsandwich, and you've got a fairly dry shirt. So this is a little more than what I would call damp, but it'll dry in a couple of hours. I just hang it in the bathroom over a towel rack or something, and it'll be done fairly quickly. So that's another great reason to wear light clothing that you can layer, because you can also then wash it easier and dry it faster. So I hope you've learned something. I hope that this has helped, and I think it's important to be able to do these things so that you can pack less and make getting around, getting on and off trains and trams and buses and ferries and all the other modes of transportation just that much easier. So have a great time doing your laundry on the road, and we'll see you later. Bye from Argentina.